Honey, from this paycheck on, we are going to manage our money separately. I'm tired of supporting you, my husband declared. I happily accepted. And when my in-laws, who as always came to eat for free until they burst, walked into the kitchen, they screamed in horror at the scene they found. Before we begin, please like and subscribe. Now, get comfortable and enjoy. Sophia woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of her alarm. Even though the sun hadn't yet risen over the freezing Chicago skyline, she didn't like to start her day rushing. She got up quietly so as not to wake her husband, Jason. She put on a robe and went to the bathroom. The splash of cold water finally woke her up. She was 31 years old and had spent the last 8 years working at a major supply chain and logistics corporation. She started as a regular coordinator and was now the head of the international freight team. Her salary was $8,000 a month, with quarterly bonuses that sometimes reached $3,000. It was a high-stress job with constant unforeseen events, containers held up at customs, poorly processed paperwork, suppliers missing deadlines. But Sophia had a knack for making quick decisions and finding solutions to any problem. She went to the kitchen, turned on the espresso machine, and took the ingredients for breakfast out of the fridge. Cooking was her way of unwinding after a hard day. While chopping vegetables or kneading dough, her mind rested from the endless calls and emails. On weekends, she could spend up to 5 hours in the kitchen experimenting with new recipes, which brought her genuine joy. Jason appeared in the kitchen around 7 a.m., sleepy and disheveled. He worked as a structural draftsman at a construction firm and made about $5,500 a month. In Chicago, it was a decent, stable salary. When they got married 5 years ago, Sophia made her stance clear. There would be no traditional gender roles, and she had no intention of becoming a traditional housewife. Jason had nodded back then, not giving it much thought. He even seemed surprised she brought it up. But life happened, and Sophia naturally took over all the household chores, not out of obligation, but because she liked it. She felt at peace when the house was clean and organized, and cooking became her main hobby. Jason never demanded it. He simply took it for granted. Breakfast that morning was avocado toast with smoked salmon and a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. Jason ate in silence, scrolling through the news on his phone. Sophia finished her coffee and looked at her husband. He seemed lost in thought, but she didn't pry. Everyone is entitled to their own headspace. After breakfast, Jason was the first to leave. He had a 9 a.m. meeting. Sophia stayed behind for an extra half hour to load the dishwasher, wipe the counters, and start a load of laundry. She did everything mechanically, quickly, and effortlessly. Her day at the office passed with the usual chaos. A supplier in Taiwan delayed a shipment of components, forcing her to find alternative freight routes. 3 video calls, dozens of emails, and heavy coordination with the customs broker later. The problem was solved just in time for lunch. Mr. Mitchell, her director, simply nodded with satisfaction. He was no longer surprised by Sophia's ability to navigate the most difficult situations. That evening, she stopped at a Whole Foods near their house. Tomorrow was Saturday, the day Jason's family always came over. It was a ritual established 3 years ago when Jason's brother, Michael, had his 3rd child. Michael was 38, and his wife Liz was 34. Their kids were born close together, and now they had 2 young boys and a 4-year-old daughter. Liz always looked exhausted from dealing with them 24/7, and Michael was always stressed with work. That was when Jason and Michael's mother, Carol, suggested they all get together every Saturday at Sophia and Jason's place. Their house was bigger, and Sophia was an incredible cook, so it would give Liz a break from the kitchen at least 1 day a week. Sophia hadn't objected. She loved cooking for a crowd, seeing their satisfied faces, and receiving compliments. She filled her shopping cart, a massive prime rib roast, fresh organic vegetables for a medley, a large bag of mixed artisanal greens, heavy cream, 3 types of imported cheese, high-quality flour to make homemade garlic knots, and fruit like Honeycrisp apples, pears, and grapes. For dessert, fresh raspberries and blueberries, Belgian chocolate, eggs, and milk. At the register, the total came out to $185, a considerable amount. Sophia paid with her card and slipped the receipt into a separate pocket of her wallet. She had a habit of keeping all her receipts and, once a month, logging her expenses into a spreadsheet. It wasn't out of stinginess, but because she liked to know where her money went. It gave her a sense of control. When she got home, Jason was already on the couch with his laptop. Sophia carried the heavy canvas bags into the kitchen and started putting the groceries away. Her husband peeked into the kitchen and glanced at the mountain of food. "My parents are coming tomorrow, right?" "Yes. And Michael, Liz, and the kids. You bought a lot." "There's 7 of them, plus us 2, makes 9. Plus, they usually take leftovers for the whole week." Jason nodded and went back to his laptop. Sophia, while stocking the pantry, mentally planned tomorrow's menu. First, get the prime rib in the oven. That will take a few hours. While it rests, I'll make the creamy scalloped potatoes, then the salads, the garlic knots, and finally the chocolate tart. Saturday started early. By 8 a.m., Sophia was in the kitchen with her apron on, prepping the meat. She listened to soft jazz, which helped her focus. She poured herself a large mug of coffee and dove into the culinary process. She rubbed the prime rib with a blend of herbs, garlic, and coarse salt and got it into the oven. Next, she started slicing the potatoes paper thin for the gratin, simmering heavy cream and Gruyere cheese. She moved with speed and dexterity. Her hands remembered every motion. Jason appeared in the kitchen around 11 a.m., still groggy, wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt. There were already pots bubbling on the stove, and a mouth-watering aroma wafted from the oven. "Need help with anything? Can you set the table in the dining room? The good placemats are in the top drawer." He obediently went to fetch the plates and silverware. Sophia was whipping heavy cream for the tart. Just as she was placing the final raspberry on the dessert, the doorbell rang. The clock struck 1 p.m. exactly. Her in-laws were always aggressively punctual. The first to walk in was her mother-in-law, Carol, a 5'8" woman with a robust build, short hair, and a perpetually dissatisfied expression. She carried a large tote bag. Sophia knew that inside was a collection of empty Tupperware containers meant for taking food home. Behind her came Michael, tall, thin, and looking drained, followed by Liz, pale with dark circles under her eyes, and the 3 kids. The boys ran straight to the guest room where the toys were kept, while the little girl clung to her mother's leg. Sophia began bringing the serving dishes to the table. The prime rib, perfectly medium rare, the rich and bubbly scalloped potatoes, a massive salad with goat cheese and candied pecans, warm garlic knots, and finally, the gorgeous fruit and chocolate tart. Carol circled the table, inspecting every dish like a health inspector. You really tried. The potatoes look nice and golden, but the meat could have been cooked a little longer. And the salad needs more dressing. But hey, it's edible." Sophia smiled and said nothing. Her mother-in-law always found something to critique. It was her signature move. First, a backhanded compliment, inevitably followed by a complaint. It never used to bother her, but today, for some reason, it stung. The meal was loud and dragged on. The kids ran between rooms and had to be yelled at 10 times to sit down. The youngest refused to eat anything but bread. The adults talked about their own lives. Michael complained about his job. His boss demanded the impossible, deadlines were approaching, and his team was underperforming. Liz quietly vented about a conflict with a daycare teacher who, according to her, wasn't watching the kids properly. Carol lamented her fixed Social Security income. "You can't survive on this money," she'd say. "Prices go up every single day." Jason remained mostly silent, adding a neutral comment here and there. Sophia was quiet too, observing them. She usually loved watching people enjoy her food. But today, that pleasure was missing. After the meal, when everyone was stuffed and leaning back in their chairs, Carol, right on cue, pulled the Tupperware containers from her tote bag. Big ones, small ones. She methodically began packing up the leftovers. A huge chunk of prime rib in one, all the remaining potatoes in another, half the salad, the rest of the garlic knots. Sophia watched in silence as the food she had invested 5 hours and nearly $190 into was packed away. She used to think it was normal. She figured it was better for the family to take it than for it to go to waste. With 3 kids, they'd have dinners for half the week. But today, watching her mother-in-law fill the plastic tubs, she felt a flare of irritation. Maybe it was the comment about the meat, or the salad dressing, or just the accumulation of 3 years. The family left around 6 p.m. Jason helped clear the table and load the dishwasher. Sophia wiped down the counters and put the tiny bit of remaining food in the fridge, barely enough for her and Jason to have a light dinner. That night, when everything was finally tidy and she could rest, Sophia sat at her computer and opened the budget spreadsheet she'd kept for years. It was a habit from college when money was tight. She logged the $185 from yesterday's grocery run. Then, out of pure curiosity, she started looking at the tabs for the previous months, checking the costs of the weekend family dinners. $160, $175, $190, $150, $200. The numbers blurred together. Sophia opened the calculator app and started adding. In the last year alone, she had spent over $9,000 strictly on weekend meals for Jason's family. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. Over $9,000. And that didn't include their regular groceries for the two of them, the utility bills, cleaning supplies, clothes, or birthday and Christmas gifts. Sophia had never stopped to calculate exactly how much she spent exclusively on his family. She just bought, cooked, and enjoyed the process. But now, seeing that figure in black and white, something shifted inside her. She didn't feel rage or resentment. Sophia wasn't prone to explosive anger. She considered it inefficient and a waste of energy. But she had the distinct feeling that the balance was profoundly broken. She invested money, time, and effort, and in return she received critiques about how well done a roast was, but it was just a passing thought. Sophia closed the laptop, stretched her back, and got up to make a light dinner for herself and Jason, a small salad with the meager scraps of meat left over. Jason was in the living room watching a basketball game. She made herself some tea and sat next to him. The day ended as usual. The following week, Sophia noticed Jason was lost in thought. He'd come home from work, eat in silence, and then sit on his phone, frowning and reading articles for long stretches. Sophia didn't pay much attention. Everyone has their own worries. On Wednesday night, while eating dinner, Jason suddenly spoke up. "Hey, Peters told me an interesting story today." "Who's Peters?" "A new guy who joined our engineering department a month ago. He's divorced, in his mid-40s. Sophia nodded, continuing to eat her salad. "And what did he say?" "He was telling me about his divorce. When they divided their assets, his wife got half the house, even though she hadn't worked in 5 years, just stayed home. And on top of that, she wanted alimony, just for her, not child support. Can you imagine? It happens. Well, he says his biggest mistake was having a joint bank account. Since all the money was pooled together, the judge ruled she was entitled to half of everything." Sophia looked up from her plate and met her husband's eyes. "And why are you telling me this?" "Just sharing his experience. He says if they had managed their money separately, the divorce would have been way cleaner. Everyone keeps their own money. She wouldn't have been able to claim a thing." "I see. Actually, he thinks that nowadays, it's just smarter for couples to keep their finances completely separate. Everyone is responsible for their own stuff. You know what you spend and where. No lack of control." Sophia finished her salad in silence and wiped her mouth with a napkin. "Jason, if you have something to say to me, say it directly. Don't use your coworkers' stories." "No, it's just something I was thinking about." "Okay." She stood up and took her plate to the sink. If he wasn't ready to say it to her face, she wasn't going to force it. Sophia hated hints and passive aggression. If he wanted something, he'd say it. If not, whatever. The next day, Thursday, Jason came home just as pensive. Sophia was making baked salmon with lemon and rosemary. He sat at the kitchen island with his phone, scowling as he read. Passing behind him, Sophia glanced at the screen. It was an article about financial independence in modern marriages. She said nothing and kept cooking. After dinner, Jason went to the living room while she washed the dishes. Through the doorway, she saw him typing into his laptop's search bar. Sophia knew her husband was working his way up to something. An idea had taken root in his head, and he would vocalize it soon. She wouldn't rush him. She would let him reach his own conclusions and say it with his whole chest. Friday was calm. Sophia had to stay late at the office to finish a quarterly report for corporate. She got home exhausted around 10 p.m. Jason heated up some leftover lasagna for her. They ate in silence in front of the TV and went to bed early. Saturday morning began again with preparations for the family. Sophia got up at 8 a.m., drank her coffee, and drove to a high-end seafood market. She had decided to make a salt-crusted Chilean sea bass. She had been wanting to try the recipe for a while. She browsed the aisles, picking the freshest fish. Sea bass was expensive, about $35 a pound. She bought a massive 4-pounder. She also bought organic veggies, fresh herbs, artisanal cheeses, and heavy cream. The total came to $170. Back home, the magic started. She cleaned the sea bass, stuffed it with lemon slices and dill, and buried it completely under a thick layer of moistened, coarse, kosher salt. She put it in the oven. For side dishes, she made a wild mushroom risotto, 3 different salads, and a homemade mint lemonade. By 1 p.m., the table was perfectly set. The family arrived on the dot. Carol walked straight into the kitchen, sniffing the air. "Smells like fish. Did you make sea bass? With how expensive things are?" Sophia didn't answer, busy transferring a salad to a nice serving bowl. Her mother-in-law stood there for a second, then wandered into the living room. The meal began as usual. Everyone praised the fish. The sea bass was exquisite, tender, juicy, and perfectly seasoned. Even the kids ate it up. Liz asked for the recipe. Michael ate in silence, but looked profoundly satisfied. Of course, Carol pointed out that the risotto was a bit too mushy and the lemonade was too tart, but that was tradition. She was physically incapable of finishing a meal without a critique. Sophia listened, thinking about how she had spent $170 and 5 hours of her Saturday, and her reward was a complaint about rice texture. When everyone had finished dessert, Carol reached into her tote bag for her Tupperware. But before she started packing the food, she suddenly turned to Sophia. "Hey, Sophia, did you know that a lot of young couples nowadays are managing their money separately?" Sophia, who was clearing empty plates, stopped and stared directly at her mother-in-law. "Separate money? Yes, everyone manages their own paycheck. They say it's very convenient." Convenient for who? For both of you. Think about it. If a couple shares their money, it's easy for conflicts to start. One spends more, the other spends less, and the resentment builds. If you manage your own money, everyone is responsible for themselves and there are no fights. Sophia slowly set the stack of plates down on the table. "Where did you read that?" "On the internet. There are lots of articles about financial independence in marriage. I sent one to Jason, and he told me he read it. Right, honey?" Jason, sitting at the other end of the table, turned beet red and nodded. Sophia smiled without saying a word. Her mind was cold and crystal clear. Suddenly, she saw the whole picture. Carol had planted the idea in Jason's head. He had stewed over it, consulted his bitter, divorced coworker, and read articles online. And now, his mother was bringing it up in front of everyone to force the issue. "Ah, I see. That was all," Sophia said. Carol, encouraged by her daughter-in-law's apparent lack of opposition, kept going. "I read a great article that said joint bank accounts are a relic of the past. Back in the day, since women didn't work and stayed home, you pooled the money. But now, since you both work, isn't it logical to be financially independent?" "It's the modern way, you know?" "Yes, very modern," Sophia agreed mildly. Her mother-in-law, expecting more enthusiasm, didn't stop. "You, Sophia, you work hard and make your own money. Why don't you and Jason try it? Everyone keeps their own cash, without having to explain anything to anyone. It's absolute freedom." Sophia nodded, picked up the plates, and headed to the kitchen. Behind her, she heard Carol, looking incredibly smug, begin filling her Tupperware. An entire half of a sea bass, all the leftover risotto, 2 of the salads, and a pitcher of lemonade. Food for the whole week for Michael's family. The family left late. Jason cleared the table in silence while Sophia loaded the dishwasher, also in silence. They didn't speak. Each was lost in their own thoughts. When the kitchen was spotless, Sophia went to her home office, turned on her computer, and opened her financial folder. She pulled out a shoebox full of receipts from the past year, spread them out, opened her banking app, downloaded all her credit card statements, and started crunching the numbers. Weekend dinners for Jason's family, to $9,000 a year, just on groceries. Regular groceries for the 2 of them, to $6,000 a year. Utilities, electric, water, gas, internet, to $3,000 a year. Split 2 ways, it should be $1,500 each. Cleaning supplies, household goods, to $1,200 a year. Clothing, Sophia dressed simply, but bought quality pieces meant to last, to $1,500 a year. Family gifts. For Carol's birthday, she usually bought a $150 gift. For Michael, $100. For Liz, $75. For each of the 3 kids, $50. Adding Christmas and gifts for her own parents, the annual figure hovered around $2,500. Sophia built a detailed spreadsheet, breaking everything down by category. Then she looked at the totals. Out of her $8,000 monthly take-home pay, Almost all of her money went toward shared household expenses. She was left with maybe $500 to spend on coffees, cosmetics, or personal treats. Jason, out of his $500 take-home pay, contributed exactly $150 to the joint account for bills, and maybe chipped in $200 or $300 a month for groceries if Sophia specifically asked him to. Very occasionally, he bought a major appliance like a vacuum or a microwave, but that was once a year. The rest, over $4,500 every single month, he spent entirely on himself, on the tech gadgets he loved. He bought a new iPhone or smartwatch every 6 months. Every Friday, he went out with his friends to watch sports and drink craft beer, blowing $80 a night. And he heavily subsidized his mother, Carol, who constantly asked him for money because her Social Security wasn't enough, whether to fix a window or just because she wanted cash. Sophia saved the spreadsheet and closed the laptop. She stood up, stretched, and went to the kitchen to make some chamomile tea. She sat by the window, watching the city lights. Separate finances. The modern way. Everyone responsible for their own stuff. It was an interesting idea, and it would be even more interesting to see how long Jason lasted when she actually accepted it. Sophia took a sip of her tea and smiled. She wasn't angry or hurt. She simply thought that a fascinating experiment was about to begin, and the results would be very revealing. The following week, Jason seemed even more restless. He tried to say something several times but backed down. Sophia watched him with the clinical curiosity of a scientist studying a lab rat right before a crucial test. On Tuesday night, he brought up his coworker Peters again. "Hey, Peter showed me an article today about spouses having financial independence. It was really convincing. It said that when a couple shares money, often one person starts to feel like the other is taking advantage of them. Like one works to bring money into the family, and the other just benefits from it." Sophia, who was dicing tomatoes, didn't take her eyes off the cutting board. "Have you felt that way between us?" "No, of course not. But theoretically, it could happen. Theoretically, a lot of things can happen. Practically speaking, what is the problem?" Jason went quiet. Sophia knew he wanted to keep going, but didn't know how. She offered zero help. Let him sort his own thoughts and say it himself. On Wednesday, he came home earlier than usual. Sophia hadn't returned from a meeting with a vendor yet. When she walked in around 8 p.m., Jason was sitting on the couch, laptop closed, clearly waiting. Sophia made a quick dinner shrimp scampi over linguine. They ate in silence. Then she went to take a shower. When she came out, Jason was still on the couch, nervously picking at a throw pillow. "Sophia, we need to talk." She sat in the armchair opposite him, tightening her bathrobe. Her hair was still damp. She looked at her husband and waited. "I've been thinking a lot lately about our life, about how we live, and about money." Sophia remained silent. "And I think we need to make some changes to how we manage our budget." "What changes?" Jason swallowed hard and pinched the bridge of his nose. Sophia knew that tell. He did it when he was incredibly anxious. "I think we should start managing our money separately. It's more modern. It's fairer. Everyone is responsible for their own money, and that way we eliminate potential conflicts." "Have we had conflicts about money?" "No, but we could have them in the future." "I see. So you want us to separate our finances to avoid conflicts that don't exist, but theoretically could," Jason stammered. "Well, yeah. And it gives us freedom. We each spend our money how we want, without having to explain ourselves. When have I ever asked you to explain your spending?" "You haven't, but then what do you need this freedom for?" Jason fell silent for a moment, and then, as if terrified he'd lose his nerve, blurted it out all at once. "Honey, from this paycheck on, we are going to manage our money separately. I'm tired of supporting you." Dead silence. Sophia stared at her husband without changing her expression. There was no pain, no rage, no shock inside her, just a frigid clarity. It had finally happened. Jason had said the words that had been burning a hole in his brain for weeks. She smiled, very slowly. Jason tensed, bracing for an explosion. "That is an excellent idea," Sophia said calmly. "What?" "It's a fantastic idea. I am in total agreement with your proposal." Jason's jaw dropped. His eyes widened. "You agree?" "Absolutely. Managing money separately is very modern and fair. Everyone is responsible for what's theirs. It's equitable, don't you think?" "Yeah, sure. Then let's start tomorrow. No reason to wait. Jason sat there, mouth agape. He had clearly geared up for a massive fight. He was ready for tears, for screaming, for guilt trips. He had rehearsed his counter-arguments, and what he got was immediate, enthusiastic compliance. Really? You don't mind? Why would I mind? You are completely right. Everyone should be financially independent. Tomorrow marks a new life. I'm so glad you suggested it. Sophia stood up, walked over to him, and kissed him lightly on the cheek. Good night, honey. I have an early morning. She walked into the bedroom, leaving Jason completely bewildered on the couch. He didn't know whether to celebrate or panic. He absolutely did not expect that reaction. Sophia lay in bed and closed her eyes. She felt perfectly calm and icy. Jason wanted separate finances? Well, he was going to get exactly that, with all the attached consequences. Tomorrow, a new life would begin, and it was going to be a blast. Sophia wasn't mad. She wasn't the type of woman to suffer in silence. She was a woman of action, calculated, cold, and highly effective. Jason would soon realize that he had gotten exactly what he asked for, down to the last letter. Thursday started differently. Sophia got up at 6 a.m., as usual. She showered quietly, dressed in her tailored suit, and did her hair. Jason was still snoring on his side of the bed. In the kitchen, she started the coffee maker and pulled food from the fridge, but not the ingredients for breakfast for two. Today, she cooked only for herself. She cracked 3 eggs into a bowl, added a splash of milk and a pinch of salt, and poured it into a hot skillet. While the omelet cooked, she sliced half an avocado and fanned it over a piece of artisan sourdough toast. She topped it with premium lox she had bought on her way home yesterday. She squeezed half a grapefruit, and with her plate, her coffee, and her iPad, she sat at the kitchen island. She checked her work emails and replied to a few urgent messages. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. The avocado was perfectly ripe, and the smoked salmon melted in her mouth. Jason came down to the kitchen around 7 a.m. and froze in the doorway when he saw the table set for one. Morning, Sophia replied, not looking up from her screen. Jason walked over to the island and sat across from her. He looked at her gourmet breakfast and then at his empty placemat. Where's my breakfast? Sophia looked up and met his eyes calmly. You make your own. Separate finances, remember? Everyone takes care of their own meals. Are you serious? Completely. Yesterday you proposed that everyone be responsible for their own stuff. I cook for myself with my money. You cook for yourself with your money. It's entirely logical. Jason opened his mouth, then closed it. He stood up, walked to the fridge, and threw the doors wide open. On the shelves were various containers and groceries, and every single one of them had a bright neon pink sticker with the word Sophia written in Sharpie. What is this? You labeled everything? Of course. This is my food, bought with my money. Separate management requires physical separation. You can buy your own groceries whenever you want. If you have time before work, great. If not, go after. Sophia, are you joking? No, I'm just following the rules you established last night. Separate finances means individual responsibility. Or did you mean something else? Jason stared at her in stunned silence. Sophia finished her coffee leisurely and slipped her iPad into her designer tote bag. She stood up, took her plate to the sink, washed it along with her mug and fork, dried them, and put them away. Have a great day at work, she said as she walked past him out of the kitchen. Jason stood paralyzed in the middle of the kitchen. He opened the fridge again, staring in despair at the sea of pink stickers. He grabbed a plastic water bottle that didn't have a label, chugged it, grabbed his coat, and stormed out of the house, slamming the door. From her car in the garage, Sophia heard the door slam and smiled. She started the engine and drove to work. Her day went smoothly, no major fires to put out. At lunchtime, Sophia went to an upscale bistro near her corporate office. She ordered a jumbo shrimp salad and a glass of crisp white wine. She spent $45, but she didn't regret a single penny. The food was spectacular. After lunch, she opened her banking app and created a new high-yield savings account. She named it Emergency Fund and instantly transferred $2,000 from her checking account into it. It would be her personal safety net. Jason knew nothing about this account, and he had no right to. Separate finances. After work, Sophia stopped at Mariano's. She grabbed a cart and strolled down the aisles slowly, picking out groceries, but not the ones she usually bought for the family. Today, she bought only what she liked: jumbo wild-caught shrimp, which Jason hated because he called them expensive sea bugs, $25, LB. 5 perfectly ripe avocados, which Jason refused to eat, calling them flavorless mush. A wedge of authentic Roquefort blue cheese that made Jason gag just from the smell. A beautiful fillet of Chilean sea bass, fresh asparagus, pints of raspberries and blackberries, 3 bars of imported Belgian dark chocolate, a nice bottle of Pinot Grigio, high-end Nespresso pods, top-tier extra virgin olive oil, a block of real Parmigiano Reggiano. She also bought organic veggies, fresh herbs, name-brand yogurts, and sparkling water in glass bottles. At the register, the total was $220. Sophia paid without blinking. It was her money, and she was spending it on herself. When she got home, Jason was already there, as expected. He was sitting on the couch looking miserable, scrolling on his phone. Sophia walked past him with her heavy grocery bags and went straight to the kitchen. He didn't get up to help. She started putting the groceries away. The shrimp and fish went into the top drawer of the freezer, which she hadn't used before, slapped a pink sticker on them. The avocados, cheese, berries, and veggies went onto a designated shelf in the fridge, all labeled. Same with the chocolate, coffee, and olive oil. She then pulled out a small freestanding pantry cabinet she had bought at Home Depot on the way back. She assembled it right there in the kitchen corner and placed all her non-perishables inside. She closed the door and attached a small padlock. She slipped the key onto a thin silver chain around her neck. Right then, Jason walked into the kitchen. He saw the cabinet with the padlock and stared at it. What is that? My personal pantry. Locked so nobody accidentally eats what isn't theirs. Are you serious? Separate management requires clear boundaries. I don't want any misunderstandings. Sophia, have you lost your mind? Quite the opposite. Did you buy anything for dinner? Jason went quiet. He had stopped at the grocery store after work, but had frozen in the middle of the aisle, having no idea how to shop or cook. In the end, he grabbed the most basic items: a bag of frozen pizza rolls, a loaf of Wonder Bread, cheap butter, a pack of bargain bin hot dogs, and a jar of mayo. He spent about $15. All of that was currently sitting on the bottom shelf of the fridge, looking sad and lonely. Sophia took her shrimp out to thaw. Meanwhile, she sliced an avocado, some cherry tomatoes, and washed some arugula. She sautéed the shrimp in olive oil with garlic and a squeeze of fresh lemon. She plated it beautifully over the greens, dressed the salad with a lemon mustard vinaigrette, and shaved fresh parmesan on top. She poured herself a glass of Pinot Grigio, plated her dinner on a tray, put in her AirPods with some jazz playing, and sat at the kitchen island to eat. She savored every bite. Meanwhile, Jason was standing at the stove, trying to boil his hot dogs. He dropped them into boiling water, stirred them, and stared at the pot cluelessly. 10 minutes later, he fished them out. They were bloated and split open. He dumped them on a paper plate, slapped them on 2 pieces of plain white bread with mayo, and sat in front of the living room TV, chewing in angry silence. Sophia finished her elegant dinner and washed her plate and wine glass. She left his dirty pot, tongs, and plate exactly where they were. She grabbed a novel and curled up in the armchair in the living room. Jason glared at her, then at his empty paper plate, then at the dirty dishes in the sink, and got up to clean. He spent 15 minutes clanging pots around and muttering curses under his breath. When he came back, he collapsed onto the sofa and buried his face in his phone. They went to bed late, sleeping on extreme opposite edges of the mattress, backs turned. Friday began with the exact same script. Sophia made herself steel-cut oatmeal with fresh berries and nuts, a fresh juice and coffee. Jason walked into the kitchen, looked at her beautiful bowl, and then opened the fridge. On the bottom shelf sat his provisions: Wonder Bread, butter, and leftover boiled hot dogs. He buttered a slice of bread, slapped a cold hot dog on it, and chewed the dry sandwich, washing it down with tap water. Sophia finished, washed her dishes, and left for work. Jason watched her go as he finished his glass of water. That day, Sophia had her annual performance review. Mr. Mitchell called her into his office. They discussed her metrics for half an hour, and they were flawless. Sophia received the highest possible rating and a surprise performance bonus of $2,500. She walked out of the office thrilled. She immediately transferred the $2,500 directly into her new secret emergency fund. At noon, she went to lunch with her coworker Lauren at an upscale steakhouse. She ordered a filet mignon with grilled asparagus. Lauren ordered a lobster roll. They ate while talking about work and weekend plans. So, how are things at home? Lauren asked. Fascinating. Sophia smiled. What does that mean? Jason suggested we separate our finances completely, and I said yes. Lauren nearly choked on her lobster and started coughing. What? Separate finances? Yep. Since yesterday, everyone is responsible for their own life. And how's that going? Amazing. I cook only for myself, buy only my own groceries. And he does the same. Let's see how long he lasts. Lauren burst out laughing. You are ruthless. I love it. So how is he holding up? 2 days. Yesterday, he ate boiled, exploded hot dogs, and today he had a cold hot dog on plain bread for breakfast. And you? Jumbo shrimp, avocado, smoked salmon, imported cheese. All the stuff I never used to buy because he complained about the price or the taste. Good for you. Maybe he'll learn a lesson. They finished eating and ordered espressos. Sophia paid her $65, half of the bill without flinching. It felt great. Before, to save money for the family, she rarely went to nice restaurants. Now, she didn't have to save for anyone. Her money was hers. On her way home, she stopped at a specialty seafood market and bought fresh oysters. She had always wanted to learn how to shuck them. She also bought a real French baguette, a wheel of camembert, fresh figs, and local honey, spent $85. When she got home, Jason was on the couch looking starving and furious. He had eaten the $10 cafeteria special at work for lunch bland, greasy mystery meat, and his stomach had been acting up all afternoon. Sophia walked in with her grocery bags. He tracked her with his eyes, but didn't move a muscle to help. She began preparing her dinner. She carefully shucked the oysters with a special knife she'd bought. She arranged them on a platter of crushed ice with lemon wedges. She sliced the baguette, toasted it in the oven, and arranged the camembert, figs, and honey on a board. She poured a glass of white wine, sat at the kitchen island, and put on her soft music. She tasted an oyster. Buttery, briny, perfect. Followed by a sip of wine. Heaven. Jason walked into the kitchen and took in the scene. The oysters on ice, the baked cheese, the wine. He was starving. In the fridge, he only had white bread and hot dogs, which he was already sick of. Sophia. She looked up. Yes? Can we stop this now? Stop what? All of this. The separate finances thing. Let's just go back to how we were. Jason, it's been exactly 2 days. You proposed this. You said it was modern and fair. I didn't think you'd take it this literally. How did you expect me to take it? You proposed separating our money, and I agreed. We are now managing our money separately. Everyone is responsible for their own stuff. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Jason opened his mouth but clamped it shut. He couldn't find an answer that didn't make him sound horrible. He turned around and walked out of the kitchen. Sophia finished her oysters and wine, washed her dishes, and went to the living room to watch Netflix. Jason sat on the couch, glaring and hungry. Eventually, he got up and went to the kitchen. She heard the clattering of pans and smelled burning oil. 20 minutes later, he returned with a plate of scrambled eggs that looked like burnt rubber. He ate them with a deep scowl. Saturday. The day Sophia normally would have been up at dawn to start prepping a massive feast for his family. Today, she slept in until 10 a.m. She stayed in bed scrolling through TikTok. No rush. Jason woke up late too, around 11 a.m. He walked into the living room, stretched, yawned, and then suddenly froze. Sophia. My parents are coming over today. Sophia was lounging on the sofa, reading a hardcover thriller. Yes, I remember. Are you going to start cooking? No. Jason stood paralyzed in the middle of the room. What do you mean, no? I mean, we manage our money separately. I don't cook for guests that aren't mine. Your parents are your responsibility. If you want to feed them, you cook or you order delivery. Sophia, you can't do this. Why not? They're family. You've always cooked for them. We used to use our joint money to feed them. Yes, used to. Now we have separate budgets. So if you want to host your parents, use your money. The key word is before. Now the rules have changed. The rules you set. Jason grabbed his phone and ran out to the balcony. Sophia could hear frantic snippets of conversation. He was trying to convince his mother to cancel or reschedule. But Carol was adamant. They were already on their way. They'd be there in an hour. He came back inside, pale. They're coming! What do I do? I told you. Cook or order food. You still have time. Sophia, please, give me some advice. I've never cooked for this many people. The internet has millions of recipes. Or call a restaurant. I'm sure someone can deliver in an hour. But delivery is expensive. Cooking is cheaper. Help me out here. Your choice. Jason paced the apartment in a panic, grabbed his coat, and bolted out the door. Sophia heard the engine rev as he peeled out of the driveway. She casually went back to reading her book. 40 minutes later, Jason returned carrying massive plastic grocery bags. He sprinted into the kitchen and began dumping the contents onto the island in sheer panic. Pre-made potato salad from the deli counter, 3 boxes of frozen pizza, a massive bag of frozen chicken wings, a frozen lasagna, a plastic tray of cheap California roll sushi, and a generic sheet cake. He cranked the oven to 450 degrees and started shoving everything in at once. The pizzas on one rack, the lasagna on another, the wings on a baking sheet. Sophia walked into the kitchen to grab a glass of sparkling water, took one look at the absolute chaos, smiled, and walked out. Jason was spinning like a top, opening and closing the oven door. Some things were burning, others were still frozen solid. At exactly 1 p.m., the doorbell rang. Sophia opened it. Standing there were Carol, with her tote bag full of empty Tupperware, Michael, Liz, and the 3 kids. Her mother-in-law walked in, wrinkling her nose. What's that weird smell? Sophia, what did you cook? Nothing. Hi, come on in. Carol looked at her daughter-in-law as if she was speaking a foreign language and walked into the living room. She saw Sophia immediately sit back down on the couch and open her book. You're reading a book? On a Saturday? With guests over? Yes, it's a very thrilling chapter. Make yourselves comfortable. The family awkwardly sat on the sofas. The kids ran to the toy room. Michael and Liz exchanged a confused glance. Normally, the dining table would be fully set with a feast by now. Today, the dining room was completely empty. Jason ran out of the kitchen, sweating profusely, his face bright red. It's ready! Everything's ready! I'll set the table. He started bringing out the food. The deli potato salad was plopped on the table in its original plastic tub. The pizzas were charred black on the edges and doughy in the middle. The chicken wings were scorched on the outside and bleeding near the bone. The lasagna was a lukewarm, soupy mess. The sushi was sweating in its plastic tray. He threw paper plates down. Carol stared at the spread in utter horror. Son, did you cook this? Well, I bought it and heated it up. Sophia didn't cook. His mother spun toward Sophia. Why on earth not? Sophia looked up from her book, marking her page calmly. Because we manage our money separately now, remember? 3 weeks ago, you sat at my table and told me how convenient it was. Jason took your advice. Now, everyone is responsible for themselves. I cook for myself with my money. And if Jason wants to invite people over, he cooks with his money. But we're family. You are Jason's family. He can spend on us. And he did. With his money. I have no objections. But my money is my money. Carol opened her mouth, but couldn't find a single word. Michael let out a low chuckle. Liz bit her lip to stop herself from laughing. The meal began in agonizing, tense silence. Everyone sat down reluctantly. The potato salad was bland and coated in cheap mayo. The pizza tasted like ash. The wings were rubbery and dangerous to eat. The lasagna was cold in the center. The sushi was mush. The kids flat out refused to eat. The youngest started crying loudly, demanding real food like always. Liz tried to soothe her, but the girl wailed. Carol sat stone-faced, barely touching her paper plate. Michael chewed a charred pizza crust in silence. Liz just drank water. 20 minutes later, they all gave up, pretending to eat. They just sat there, in aggressive silence. Usually, this was when coffee and dessert were served, followed by hours of chatting. Today, you could hear a pin drop. Finally, Carol snapped. Jason, would you mind explaining what the hell is going on here? Jason squirmed in his chair. Mom, it's just... Sophia and I decided to split our finances. Everyone is responsible for their own expenses. And why would you do something so stupid? It's modern, it's fair, you said so yourself. Carol's face turned purple. I didn't mean this. Then, what exactly did you mean? Sophia intervened, closing her book completely. She stood up, walked over to the dining table, and sat in an empty chair. Carol, 3 weeks ago, you lectured me about separate finances. You told me it was convenient, modern, and fair. Jason agreed. Now we do things separately. What is the problem? The problem is you are making a fool of yourself. You're letting your husband starve and refusing to feed your family. I'm not letting anyone starve. Jason is a grown adult. I'm anyone. He can cook, order delivery, or buy pre-made food. He has his own paycheck and the physical capability to do so. But you are his wife. You have obligations. My obligations as a wife do not include providing free catering to my husband's relatives every single Saturday. I work full-time. I earn my own salary. I pay my half of the bills. Just like Jason, we are equals. Or do you believe we aren't? Carol's face flushed deep red. You were never this cold. No. I used to cook for you with joy because I thought we were a family unit. But since you suggested we operate as completely separate financial entities, we are no longer a family unit. We are individuals responsible for ourselves. Suddenly, Michael let out a sharp, dry laugh. Jason, Sophia is totally right. Michael. His mother gasped, scandalized. Mom, drop it. She is 100% right. We got totally used to coming here and eating for free, off Sophia's dime and Sophia's labor. She spent a fortune and hours of her weekend cooking for us, and we even packed up her leftovers to feed ourselves for the week. We've been absolute freeloaders. Liz nodded quietly. Your brother is right. I always felt guilty taking so much food, but you guys kept saying it was normal and that Sophia loved it. I did love it, Sophia said, as long as our budget was shared. Now that it's separated, the rules have changed. Carol clamped her mouth shut, her lips a thin, furious line. Suddenly, she stood up and grabbed her tote bag. We are leaving. Kids, get your coats. Michael and Liz stood up, gathered the crying kids, and put on their jackets. At the front door, Michael turned to his brother. Jason, think really hard about what you're doing. Sophia isn't the villain here. You started this idiotic game. The front door clicked shut. Jason stood alone in the dining room, looking at the disastrous, ruined food, the dirty paper plates, and the closed door. Then he looked at Sophia. She had walked back to the couch, opened her book to her bookmark, and resumed reading. Sophia, please tell me we can stop this now. Go back to how things were, Jason. It's been 3 days. Are you already giving up on the financial independence you begged for? I'm not giving up. I realize this is wrong. What exactly is wrong? That we eat completely separate meals. That we cook separately. We're a married couple. We should do things together. Then why did you demand separate finances? Jason was silent. You listened to your buddy Peters, whose ex-wife took him to the cleaners. And you listened to your mother, who planted the seed in your brain. And you genuinely thought I was taking advantage of you. That I was squandering your hard-earned money. Am I wrong? It wasn't exactly like that. It was exactly like that. You thought separating our money would give you total control. That if I spent only my money and you spent only yours, everything would be perfect. But you never stopped to think that separate finances mean separate lives. Complete individual responsibility in every single aspect of running a house. Jason sank onto the sofa and buried his face in his hands. I've been a complete idiot. Yes, you have. But you can fix it. He looked up, eyes full of desperate hope. You forgive me? It's way too early to talk about forgiveness. First, you need to fully comprehend what you actually did. Sophia put her book down, went to her home office, and came back with her laptop. She sat next to him and opened her master budget spreadsheet. Look, these are our household expenses for the last 12 months. Broken down by category, with every receipt attached. Jason stared at the numbers. His eyes widened in horror. Weekend dinners for your family, over $9,000 a year. Just on groceries. Not counting my time, the gas for the stove, or the water to wash the dishes. I had no idea. Our regular groceries, $6,000 a year. Utilities, $3,000. Household supplies, $1,200. My clothes, $1,500. Gifts for both our families, $2,500. Sophia walked him through every single tab. Jason grew paler by the second. In short, Out of my $8,000 monthly salary, almost everything went into running our shared life. I kept maybe $500 for myself, Sophia. And you? Out of your $5,500 salary, you put $150 into the joint account. The rest, over $5,000 every month, you spent on yourself. On your Apple Watches, your bar tabs with your frat buddies, and giving cash to your mother. Where is the fairness in that, Jason? Jason was utterly speechless. Sophia closed the laptop. That is why I agreed to separate finances, so you could see exactly how much I physically and financially contribute to this marriage. And what was my reward? Being told my roast was slightly overcooked. She stood up and left the laptop on the coffee table. When you truly understand this, we will talk about forgiveness. She walked into the master bedroom and locked the door. Jason sat alone on the couch, staring into space. His head was spinning. He truly hadn't known. He hadn't run the numbers. He hadn't thought about it. He just assumed Sophia cooked, cleaned, and handled the house. He thought it was normal. But the reality was that he was the freeloader. He had been living a life of extreme luxury subsidized entirely by his wife's labor and income, without paying the price. And he had the absolute audacity to tell her he was tired of supporting her. That night, he tried to make dinner. He boiled spaghetti and dumped cold, jarred sauce over it. It was terrible. He choked it down bite by bite. Sophia came out of the bedroom and seared a beautiful steak with garlic butter veggies. She ate at the kitchen island. He ate in the living room. They didn't speak. Sunday was suffocatingly quiet. Jason tried to clean the apartment but didn't know where the right supplies were. He vacuumed the living room rug and gave up, exhausted. He tried to do his own laundry, picked the hot water cycle, and shrunk his favorite sweaters. Sophia went about her business. She worked on her laptop, read, and watched Netflix, acting as if he were a ghost. In the afternoon, his mother called him. He went to the balcony. It was a brutal conversation. Carol demanded apologies, threw accusations, and applied maximum guilt. Jason tried to explain the math to her, but she refused to listen. When he came back inside, he looked gray. Sophia saw it but said nothing. They went to sleep on opposite ends of the bed. Jason tossed and turned all night. Sophia slept deeply, her conscience crystal clear. Monday marked the beginning of week 2. Jason left for work early, skipping breakfast. He didn't know how to cook one, and buying Starbucks every single morning was bleeding him dry. Sophia ate her oatmeal, drank her espresso, and drove to the office. Her day was intense. Another issue with Taiwanese customs: incorrectly filed manifests. Sophia spent 3 hours on the phone, firing off emails, coordinating logistics until she bullied the shipment through. At lunch, she ate in the corporate cafeteria with a manager from accounting. They talked about work and the Chicago weather. Sophia didn't breathe a word about her marital war. She never aired her dirty laundry. That evening, Jason got home late. Sophia had already eaten scallops over linguine. He went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. On his shelf was the remaining loaf of Wonder Bread and a single, sad hot dog. He had forgotten to go to the grocery store. He grabbed a slice of bread, took a bite, and chewed the dry starch, washing it down with tap water. Sophia was on the couch watching a movie and didn't even turn her head. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the same miserable routine. Jason ate whatever he could scavenge at the corporate cafeteria. He bought fast food on the way home, or just ate dry bread. In 1 week, he had blown through $300 just trying to feed himself terrible food. His dress shirts were wrinkled because he didn't know how to iron. His side of the bathroom was filthy because he didn't know how to clean it. His dishes piled up in the sink, and he washed them haphazardly. Sophia, meanwhile, was thriving. She cooked gourmet meals, crushed it at work, and got drinks with her friends. She looked radiant. By Friday evening, Jason couldn't take it anymore. He walked in and saw Sophia in the kitchen. She was making duck à l'orange. It smelled intoxicating. He sat at the island and watched her perform magic at the stove. Finally, he spoke in a broken voice. "Sophia, can we talk for a minute?" She turned around. "I'm listening." "I'm sorry. I am so deeply, truly sorry. I realize everything now. I was completely wrong. I was insanely selfish. I took you for granted and I didn't value a single thing you did. Go on. I want us to go back to how we were, with a joint budget, a normal marriage, without this awful, cold separation. Sophia turned off the burner, wiped her hands on a linen towel, and sat across from him. All right, but under my conditions. Anything. I will continue to keep a strict ledger of all expenses. You will have full access to see exactly where every dollar goes at any time. Total financial transparency. Agreed. Weekend dinners with your family happen exactly once a month, not every week. And we discuss the menu beforehand. Understood? Yes. No more Tupperware. I cook for the meal at this table. It is not a free takeout service for them to stock their fridge. Agreed. You will never, ever bring the toxic advice of bitter men like Peter's into our marriage again. If we have a problem, you speak to me directly, not your coworkers. I promise. Sophia stared at him in silence for a long moment. And, finally, you will verbally acknowledge that I am not a leech that you support. I am your equal partner. I contribute just as much to this family as you do, if not significantly more. I know. God, I know that now. I acknowledge it completely. Then fine. We go back to a joint budget. Jason jumped up to hug her. Sophia stopped him with a flat palm to his chest. Hold on. I forgive you, but I do not forget. The words you said to me that you were tired of supporting me, those words will stay with me forever. Sophia, I didn't mean it. I was just being stupid. I know you were, but the words left your mouth. And now I will always know that in a moment of manufactured crisis, instead of having my back, you falsely accused me. And that has permanently changed something between us. She stood up, went back to the stove, and resumed cooking, but this time, she pulled out a second duck breast. Jason sat at the island, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He realized that he had broken a foundational pillar of their marriage, and he was entirely to blame. Fast forward to the following week. Despite the conversation in the kitchen, Sophia had not fully merged the accounts yet. She looked at him with cool, calculating eyes. It's too soon, Jason. You still don't fully understand. He tried to plead, but she was immovable. The malicious compliance of separate finances continued. Jason kept surviving on fast food and terrible cafeteria lunches. His clothes were rumpled, his spaces were messy. He was burning through cash at an alarming rate, yet his quality of life was lower than ever. Sophia continued to prosper gourmet meals, perfect outfits, a glowing bank account. On Monday of week 3, Jason's phone rang. It was his mother. Jason, we're coming over on Saturday. We miss seeing you. He froze, the phone pressed to his ear. Mom, what if you don't? Things are really tense right now. What things? We can't visit our own son's house? We'll be there at 1 p.m. for lunch, as usual. Mom, there's no buts. See you Saturday. Click. Jason stared at his dead screen in terror. What was he going to do? Sophia absolutely would not cook, and he had no idea how to feed 7 people. That night, he tried to broach the subject. Sophia, my parents and Michael are coming on Saturday. She was reading her book. She didn't look up. I know. I heard you on the balcony yesterday. Are you going to help me? No. Sophia, please. Just this once. She closed her book and locked eyes with him. Jason, we have separate finances. Your family, your responsibility. It's only fair. But I don't know how to cook. Learn. Order delivery. Buy catering. You have options. Sophia. No, Jason. I am dead serious. You wanted financial independence? You have it. Live with it. She got up and walked into the bedroom. Jason spent the rest of the week having a slow-motion panic attack. He Googled recipes, but everything looked like quantum physics to him. By Thursday, he cracked. He called an upscale Italian restaurant near his office and ordered full catering for Saturday delivery. Massive trays of premium pasta, salads, garlic bread, and tiramisu. It cost him $350, a massive chunk of his remaining paycheck for a single meal, but he had no choice. Friday night, he smugly told Sophia, I ordered catering from Maggiano's. It'll be here tomorrow at noon. Good job. Very resourceful. Are you really not going to cook anything? Nope. Are you even going to sit at the table with us? No. Why would I? It's your food, bought with your money, for your family. I wasn't invited. Sophia, they're going to think you're insane. Let them think whatever they want. Jason realized arguing was pointless. He went to bed with a heavy heart. Saturday started horribly. Sophia got up early, showered, dressed flawlessly, and announced she was spending the day at a friend's apartment in downtown Chicago. "I'll be back tonight." "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" Jason exploded. "No, I just have absolutely zero desire to participate in your circus. Good luck." And she left. Jason was alone. At 11:30 a.m., his phone rang. It was the restaurant. "Sir, I am so sorry. We had a catastrophic plumbing issue in our main kitchen, and we cannot fulfill your catering order. We are refunding your card. The money should post in 3 to 5 business days." Jason's blood turned to ice. What? His parents were arriving in 90 minutes. He grabbed his coat and sprinted to the nearest grocery store. He sprinted down the aisles, hyperventilating. What could he make? He grabbed the cheapest boxes of penne pasta he could find, jars of generic marinara, Wonder Bread, and butter. He had almost zero money left in his checking account. His next paycheck was a week away. He ran home and ripped open a box of pasta. He stood in the kitchen, paralyzed. How do you boil it? How much water? How long? He guessed. He filled a huge pot with a tiny bit of water, cranked the heat, and dumped 2 boxes in. Because there wasn't enough water, the pasta instantly glued together into a solid, starchy brick at the bottom of the pot. Jason, screaming profanities, tried to scrape it out, ultimately throwing the ruined, burnt mass into the sink. He looked at the clock. 12:45 p.m. They would be here in 15 minutes. In a state of absolute blinding panic, he grabbed the last remaining box of penne. He ripped it open and poured the completely dry, raw, uncooked pasta directly onto 3 paper plates. He placed the 3 plates of raw, hard noodles on the dining table. Nothing else. At exactly 1 p.m., the doorbell rang. Jason opened it, looking like a dead man walking. Carol barged in, Tupperware tote bag swinging. Michael, Liz, and the kids followed. "Smells weird in here," Carol noted. "It smells like nothing. Did Sophia not cook again?" "Come in," was all Jason could whisper. They took off their coats. The kids ran to play. Carol looked at the empty dining table. "Is the food not ready?" It's ready. I'll bring it out." Jason went to the kitchen, grabbed the 3 paper plates of raw pasta, carried them out, and set them down. Everyone stared. On each plate was a mound of bone-dry, uncooked penne right out of the cardboard box. A graveyard silence fell over the room. Michael spoke first. "What is this?" Jason, sweating through his shirt, said nothing. Carol stepped up to the table, picked up a hard noodle, and tried to snap it. "This is raw." Right at that exact second, Sophia walked out of the hallway. She hadn't gone to downtown Chicago. She had been sitting quietly in the master bedroom the entire time, waiting. The family snapped their heads toward her. Sophia stood in the doorway with a serene, terrifyingly calm smile. You did this on purpose," Carol shrieked at her. "What kind of garbage is this boy serving us?" Sophia strolled slowly toward the dining table, looked at the raw pasta, and then looked at her in-laws. "Eat up. We manage our money separately now, remember?" She turned to Jason. "You only had enough cash left for dry pasta, right? Well, bon appetit. Try not to break a tooth." Dead silence. Carol's jaw was on the floor. Michael bent over, violently coughing to hide the fact that he was laughing hysterically. Liz covered her face with her hands. Jason was as pale as a ghost. "Sophia, you didn't leave?" He whispered. "No. I was in the bedroom watching you suffer, waiting for exactly this moment." "Why?" "To prove a point to you and to them." She swept her gaze over the in-laws. "So that everyone in this room finally comprehends what managing money separately actually means." Carol found her voice. "Are you mocking us? We are your family." "No." Sophia cut her off with lethal coldness. "You are Jason's family. And you were the one who proposed separate finances, Carol. Do you remember? 3 weeks ago, sitting at my table, telling me how modern and convenient it was? I didn't mean this. Then what did you mean? That I should keep draining my bank account to fund your lifestyle while you all keep showing up to eat for free? That's not how it works. We don't eat for free. We are family." A family that comes over every Saturday to pack Tupperware full of expensive food for the rest of your week. A family that, over the last 3 years, has eaten over $27,000 of my money and has never once said thank you. Carol turned violently red, then stark white. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't know. You didn't care to know. You showed up, you gorged yourselves, you critiqued my cooking, and you packed your bags. I put in the money, the time, and the physical labor. And my payment was you telling me my prime rib was too rare. Sophia is right, Liz said softly from the corner. We absolutely took advantage of your kindness. Michael nodded. Mom, she's completely right. Carol looked at her son, at her daughter-in-law, and at the plates of raw pasta. This is humiliating. Yes, Sophia agreed flatly. It is. Exactly the same humiliation I felt when Jason looked me in the eye and told me he was tired of supporting me. The absolute humiliation when the person funding the entire household is accused of being a freeloader. She turned to Jason. Do you see now what it takes to feed your relatives with your own money? You blew your last dollar on a catering company that canceled on you, and you were left with nothing but cheap pasta that you don't even know how to boil. Jason stared at the floor, absolutely destroyed. And I did that, every Saturday, for 3 years, buying $200 worth of premium groceries, cooking for 5 hours, setting the table, listening to insults, watching your mother steal my leftovers, and believing that it was fine because we were family. Sophia picked up a dry noodle and snapped it between her fingers. But it turns out we weren't a family. It turns out I was just a free personal chef and an unpaid maid that my husband was exploiting. Sophia. I'm so sorry, Jason finally choked out. I've been a colossal idiot. I didn't think. I didn't understand. And do you understand now? Yes, I understand it completely. Please, please forgive me. He dropped to his knees right there on the hardwood floor in front of his family. He clasped his hands together in pure desperation. Forgive me. Let's go back to how it was. I see everything now. I will value you. I won't listen to Peters. I won't listen to my mom. Just please forgive me. Sophia looked down at him for a long, agonizing minute. The entire room held their breath, waiting for the executioner's blade to fall. Get up, Jason. He scrambled to his feet. His face was streaked with tears, his eyes bloodshot. I forgive you. Jason let out a massive, shuddering sigh of relief and stepped forward to hold her. She put her hand up, stopping him dead in his tracks. But with conditions. Very strict conditions. Anything. We go back to a joint account. But I maintain absolute control over the master ledger. You will see where every cent goes. Agreed. Weekend family dinners happen exactly once a month. No more. And we agree on it beforehand. Agreed. No more Tupperware. Ever. You eat what is on the table. If you want takeout, you go to a restaurant and pay for it. Carol flinched indignantly, but Michael clamped a heavy hand on her shoulder. Mom, shut up. It's perfectly fair. Jason nodded frantically. Done. You will never take marital advice from outside this house again. If you have an issue, you bring it to me directly. I swear it. Sophia paused, her voice dropping to a deadly serious register. And, finally, you will acknowledge, out loud, that I am not a dependent. I am your equal partner. I contribute vastly more to this household than you do. And you will respect that. Jason, weeping openly now, nodded wildly. Yes, I swear. You do everything for us. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so sorry, Sophia sighed. Fine. Starting Monday, the finances are joint again. Jason lunged forward and hugged her tight. She patted his back, but her posture was stiff. She gently pushed him away and turned to her in-laws. Carol, I don't hold a grudge. But in the future, please do not dispense marital advice when you have absolutely zero clue about the financial realities of the situation. You nearly destroyed my marriage. Her mother-in-law, thoroughly humbled, stared at the floor. I'm sorry, Sophia. I didn't think it would lead to this. I know you didn't. That's why I'm letting it go. Liz walked over and hugged Sophia tightly. Thank you for feeding us all these years. We've been awful. Michael walked up next. Sophia, you're a badass. You taught us all a brutal but totally necessary lesson. Just then, the kids ran out of the toy room and stopped, staring at the crying adults. The youngest girl looked at the table. Where's the food? Why are there just crunchy sticks? Everyone looked at each other. The sheer absurdity of the tension broke, and genuine laughter erupted around the room. Sophia smiled softly and walked toward the kitchen. I'll whip something up quickly. The kids shouldn't suffer for the stupidity of adults. She unlocked her private pantry. Within 30 minutes, she had whipped up fluffy omelets with spinach and Gruyere, sliced a fresh baguette, and put out a beautiful charcuterie spread. A simple but incredibly satisfying meal. They all sat at the table and ate. The atmosphere was strange, not hostile, but not exactly warm either. It was a transition. After lunch, the family didn't linger. They packed up their kids in coats. At the door, Carol awkwardly hugged Sophia. Thank you for forgiving us. And, Jason, you are a very strong woman. I just don't tolerate injustice, Carol. You shouldn't. They left. The door clicked shut. Jason and Sophia were finally alone. He looked at her with huge, guilty eyes. Sophia, did you really forgive me? Yes, Jason. I forgave you. So, everything will go back to how it was? Sophia was silent for a long time. No, it won't go back to how it was. It will be different. Not necessarily worse, just different. Because of what I said. Yes. When you said those words, something snapped between us. Something vital. The blind trust. The intimacy. The absolute certainty that we were a bulletproof team. Can I fix it? I don't know. Time will tell. Jason nodded slowly. He knew he had been granted a second chance. The absolute final chance. And if he ruined it, there was no coming back. They began clearing the table in silence, each focused on the task. Life went on, but the foundation had shifted. A month passed since that infamous Saturday. Jason truly changed. He became incredibly attentive and affectionate. He did chores without being asked. He vacuumed. He asked about her day at the logistics firm. He cut off Peters entirely, speaking to him only about engineering blueprints. Carol changed too. She came over exactly once a month, ate her meal, said a gracious thank you, and left without a single piece of Tupperware or a single complaint. On the surface, life had returned to a beautiful normal. But deep inside, Sophia felt the fracture. She looked at Jason and no longer saw the husband she implicitly trusted with her life. She saw a man who was fully capable of turning on her. A man who, in a moment of manufactured stress, chose to accuse her rather than defend her. She continued depositing money into her secret, separate, high-yield savings account. Every month, a heavy chunk of her $8,000 paycheck vanished into it. The balance was already over $25,000. It was her emergency ripcord. Jason knew nothing about the account, and he didn't need to, because Sophia now operated with a permanent Plan B in the back of her mind. She was fully prepared to walk away if she ever needed to. She was no longer the unconditionally devoted wife who viewed her marriage as an unbreakable vow. She was a woman with her eyes wide open, acutely aware of her partner's fatal flaws, knowing exactly what he was capable of when push came to shove. And that knowledge changed everything. One freezing Chicago night, they were on the couch watching a movie. Jason wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Sophia didn't pull away, but she didn't lean into him either. She just stared blankly at the TV. Sophia, are you happy? He asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. I'm content. Is it because of what happened? Yes. Is there anything I can do? You're already doing it. I see the effort, Jason. But it takes what it takes. Time will tell. Jason pulled her a fraction closer. Sophia allowed it. They finished the movie physically intertwined, but Sophia's mind was miles away. There was no hatred or malice left in her chest, only a quiet, echoing emptiness. Where there used to be unconditional love, there was now only cautious affection. She didn't hate him, but she didn't love him the way she used to. A piece of her love had died the exact second, he said. I'm tired of supporting you. And that piece could never be resurrected. No amount of apologies or changed behavior could bring it back. The death was permanent, and that was the greatest tragedy of it all. They continued living together, sharing a bed, eating at the same island. To the outside world, they were a perfect, high-earning American couple, but internally, the lights had gone out. Jason held on to the desperate hope that one day the warmth would return to her eyes, that the true intimacy would come back. But Sophia knew it never would. She had forgiven, but she had not forgotten. Some wounds don't heal, they just close up, stop bleeding, and leave a permanent, ugly scar. And every time she looked at Jason, she saw the scar. She remembered the betrayal. She kept an emotional wall built high, because she could never fully trust him again. And without absolute trust, there is no true intimacy. A year passed. Then 2. They stayed together, living a peaceful, conflict-free existence. Jason kept trying. Sophia kept her distance. Her secret escape fund grew. $40,000, $60,000, $85,000. One evening, Jason looked at her across the kitchen island. "Sophia, will you ever truly forgive me?" She looked back at him, her eyes unreadable. "I forgave you that very day, Jason. But forgiving someone doesn't mean forgetting what they did, and it doesn't mean trusting them again. So, you don't trust me?" "Not like I used to. Can I ever earn that back?" "I don't know. Honestly, probably not. Then why are we still together?" Sophia looked out the window at the snow falling over the city. Habit mostly. Comfort. Divorce is exhausting. "But you don't love me? I care about you, but not the way I did before. It's colder now." Jason dropped his gaze to the granite countertop. "I ruined everything. Yes. And it can never be fixed." "Probably not." They sat in silence, physically 3 feet apart, but emotionally in different universes. Jason finally realized he had lost her forever. She might be sitting in his kitchen, but her heart had packed its bags and left years ago. That was the ultimate price of his arrogance, his paranoia, and his unforgivable words. He had won her pardon, but he had lost her love, and it was a loss he would never recover from. Sophia continued her life, working, cooking, succeeding. On the outside, nothing had changed, but on the inside, she was already free, emotionally liberated from the confines of the marriage. She stayed out of pity, out of routine, and to avoid the logistical nightmare of a split. But the love was gone. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that one day she would find the motivation to finally walk out the door. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Because a life without love is a life half-lived. And Sophia was not a woman who settled for half measures.